Oh, you thought we were done, sweet summer child. We haven't even scraped the bottom of the assassination barrel yet. The one labeled WTF did a toddler plan this. We've covered emperors, tyrants, dictators, and a few glorified NPCs who somehow ruled countries. But now it's time for the real historical slop. The plot so idiotic they make Florida man look like a chess grandmaster. Let's rewind to 18th century Sweden. King Gustav III, a man so obsessed with French culture he basically lobbed Versailles in Stockholm. We're talking powdered wigs, ballet at breakfast, and the kind of monarch who looked at national unrest and said, let them eat ambience, the peasants, starving, the nobles, plotting Gustav hosting masquerade balls like a reality show contestant dodging a mental breakdown. And guess what? That's where they got him, at a masquerade ball. The conspirators literally waited until he was wearing a mask and then shot him in the back. Because nothing says royal dignity like dying dressed like a haunted chandelier. But here's the kicker. Gustav didn't die immediately. The bullet lodged in his spine and he just lay there, refusing medical help for 2 weeks like he was auditioning for a Swedish soap opera. Eventually, sepsis won. Plot twist. The assassin was a disgruntled noble who panicked and told people he did it before escaping. 10 out of 10 for confession speed, 0 out of 10 for exit strategy. Imagine assassinating a king in slow motion, in a costume, and then ruining the getaway by yelling, "It was me." This was less political execution and more Scooby-Doo villain energy. And I would have gotten away with it, too, if I hadn't dramatically monologued in Act 1. Now fast forward to Korea. 16th century, this one's got samurai, political intrigue and naturally flaming arrows. Because subtlety was a luxury item back then. Enter King Gwang-higan, a paranoid mess of a monarch. Everyone wanted him gone. Nobles, generals, probably even the palace cats. So someone, possibly the military, launched an actual rocket attack on the palace during a royal meeting. Yup, they fired fire-tipped arrows into the throne room. The result? Mostly singed tapestries and one terrified court musician who ran headfirst into a gong and concussed himself. The king survived untouched. Again, we're seeing a pattern here. Assassins bring explosions. Kings bring plot armor. Let's pivot to Mexico. One of the most hilariously cursed assassination attempts happened in 1927 when Catholic rebels, known as Cristeros, tried to kill President Alvaro. The plot: hire a caricature artist to distract him while a man with a gun waited behind a potted plant. No, really. The assassin was hiding behind some ferns at a banquet. A guy who'd already lost an arm in war was eating dinner like a boss when the shooter finally leapt out and fired 5 times. And missed most of them. The good news, 1 bullet hit. The bad news, it wasn't fatal, survived again. Just imagine explaining that. Yes, sir. I was crouched behind the shrubbery with my pistol, but I panicked because he looked at me. This is why villains in movies always fail. They're historically accurate. Hiding behind a potted plant, that's not assassination. That's Home Depot cosplay. Now let's detour into the absolute fever dream that was Operation Valkyrie. Yeah, that Valkyrie, the infamous Nazi assassination plot to kill Adolf Hitler, and the inspiration for a movie starring Tom Cruise running like his knees owe him money. The plan was actually kind of solid. The conspirators were German officers who realized, hey, maybe worshipping a one-nut dictator with a meth habit isn't a sustainable long-term policy. So they planted a briefcase bomb at Hitler's military meeting. Boom, right? Except, and this is real, someone moved the briefcase behind a table leg. So when it exploded, the wooden leg absorbed the blast. Hitler walked away with a scratched eardrum and some new paranoia. And then, the conspirators bungled the follow-up like it was a bad improv show. The backup team hesitated because they weren't sure if Hitler was really dead. So the whole coup collapsed. Everyone got executed. And Hitler took it as a sign he was invincible. Which, spoiler, he wasn't, unless you count ending his own life in a bunker as winning. This plot had potential, but it was foiled by IKEA furniture and bad communication. The resistance movement was like, hey, should we check if he's really dead? Meanwhile, the dictator was yelling, surprise, bitches, from the other room. And speaking of dictators, how could we not bring up Fidel Castro? The man survived more assassination attempts than most influencers survive scandals. Over Tivos. That's not a record, that's a franchise. The CIA threw everything at him, exploding cigars, poisoned wetsuits, toxic pens, even a plot to make his beard fall out so he'd lose credibility. Because, clearly, what defeats a communist regime is male pattern baldness. One of the dumbest plans. They tried to spike his diving gear with toxins. The problem: Castro used his own gear, so the CIA agent just poisoned an empty locker. Another time they gave a lover a poisoned pill to slip into his drink. She chickened out and confessed, and Castro handed her a gun and told her to shoot him. She cried, they had sex, and the whole thing became a weird romance plot that would made Netflix executives throw money at the script. Castro survived all of it. At this point he was less a person and more a final boss with regen powers. If he'd lived in modern-day America, he'd be running a startup called Bulletproof and doing TED Talks about mindfulness under fire. And if all this has made you wonder, Can anyone actually successfully assassinate a world leader without immediately becoming a meme? Well, yes, but it usually involves someone being stupid enough to ignore all the warning signs. Let's go back to India. 1948, Mahatma Gandhi, a man so peaceful he made yoga look aggressive, was shot by a Hindu nationalist while walking to prayer. What's tragic is that Gandhi had been warned. His security was minimal. The assassin walked up and shot him point blank. This wasn't a wild plan. No explosives, no disguises, just pure hate and an open path. And yet, that assassin wasn't caught immediately either, because the crowd was so stunned they didn't know whether it was real. And that's the reality. The dumbest attempts fail because they try too hard. The successful ones, simpler than a TikTok dance. When you overthink murder, history underwrites it as comedy. So let's recap. You've got flaming horses, suicidal sandwiches, IKEA saving Hitler, exploding cigars, and assassins defeated by potted plants. If this isn't enough to make you question the intelligence of every human being that ever wore a crown, cape, or military uniform, nothing will. History is not a noble chronicle of the great. It's a blooper reel of idiots trying to outstupid each other with swords, bombs, and bad timing. This is Midnight Meme Historian, and our job is to make sure you never look at a textbook again without hearing my voice whisper. They really tried that, so hit the bell like it's a royal head. Drop a comment with your favorite "How did this guy survive" moment. And if you think this episode was dark, just wait until we cover the time France executed a guy for sneezing in the wrong direction. Oh, and subscribe. Not because we care, but because statistically speaking, you're now too deep into this rabbit hole to ever go back to normal history documentaries. Welcome to the dark side. We have memes,